Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. So in today's tutorial we'll be going over the Ruby programming language. So if you don't know what Ruby is, maybe you probably heard of this framework called Ruby on Rails. So Ruby on Rails is developed based on the Ruby programming language, and this is what we'll be covering in this tutorial. So you might be wondering what's Ruby, what's it used for, and why should I really learn Ruby. So Ruby is mostly used for web developing web applications. So even originally Twitter was built on top of Ruby on Rails, I think, but it was built using the Ruby programming language. So even today there are many companies that still use Ruby. So if I just pull up Google and do a quick search, you can see Airbnb uses uses Ruby, even GitHub uses Ruby, Fiverr uses Ruby, Airbnb uses Ruby. So you can see that Ruby is still a prominent language, and it's still something good to learn in case you want to learn a new programming language. Then Ruby is a good way to go. So in the last tutorial I showed you how to install Ruby on a Linux machine. So in this tutorial I'm going to show you the basics of Ruby programming language, and just to get you started in case you feel interested. I'm going to keep the video short, just to give you a feel of Ruby, and if you're interested you can continue learning the language on from there. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm just going to go into my terminal, and in my terminal I'm going to the last we created a folder called Ruby test. So I'm just going to go in there, and we have this test.rb file. Okay, so I'm just going to open this on Visual Studio Code. So if you haven't watched the last tutorial on how to install Ruby and set it up with Visual Studio Code, I'm going to keep a link in the description where you can find that video, or I'm going to keep a card up here where you can click on that card and watch how we set up that Ruby on the Linux. Okay, so if you're on Windows machine, it's a bit different to set up Ruby, and I hope you guys don't have any issue with that. If you have an issue with setting up Ruby on a Windows machine, can leave a comment in the comment section below. I'll do my best to get back to you. So I'm just going to create a folder. I'm going to call it basics. Just going to create a folder called basics. So instead of basics, I'm going to this way we're going to create our file. Okay, so let me just close up this way. Instead of basics, we're going to create a different file. So let me just create a file here, and I'm going to call it part_1. Let me just call it ruby.rb. okay, so Ruby files have the extension of rb. Okay, so I'm just gonna call it ruby.rb. we call it ruby basics.rb. okay, so ruby basics.rb, this is where we're going to be writing our learning Ruby from. So every program you're going to be writing, it from this file. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what we have the first time. So I have prepared this GitHub repository. I'm going to make it public once I finish recording this video. So the first thing we're going to do is just print a simple hello world. So let's go ahead and see how we can print a simple hello world using Ruby. Okay, so to do this is very simple. I'm just going to go into my my Visual Studio Code, and I'm just going to say puts, and I'm going to say hello world. So this is a simple way to run a Ruby program. So I'm going to go into my terminal and then try to run this. So I'm going to change directory into basics. So if I do an ls, you can see I have that Ruby the file there. So I'm going to now, this is how you can run it in a terminal in Linux. So you just have to say change mode and then +x, and then you're basically going to make it executable, and then you're going to say Ruby and then the name of the file, and then simply press enter. That's going to make our file executable. And if I do an ls, you can see now it is green to show that it's executable. So now once I have this, I can simply do Ruby and then Ruby basics.rb, and then simply run it, and this is simply going to print out a simple hello world. So you can see that hello world being printed out there. So now we can even do a simple hello world in Ruby just by using the print statement, just like in Python, but just like in Python 2 where we don't use the curly braces. So Ruby is very similar to Python in different ways. So as we go along, you can see that Ruby has striking similarities with Python. So now let me go back to the terminal and then run my Ruby basics Ruby and then Ruby basics.rb, and if I run it again, you can see we have hello world. So you can see this statement is different from this. Okay, so this one of the differences between let me just scroll up here. So this one of the difference between put and print is that put puts a new line after every print statement, while print doesn't. So that's why we are getting this kind of output in there. So if I go back to the terminal and I use puts, then we'll have a new line after every print statement, then we will not have this kind of output. So if I just run this again, you can see now we get this kind of output. So the difference between between put and print, whereby print does not output does not go to a new line after a print statement, while by put goes to a new line after a print statement. Okay, so once you've gone over that, let's go to the next part of this tutorial, which is going to be getting user input. So let me just remove this part, and I'm going to say enter your name, just like this, and you say enter your name, and then I'm just going to say you're going to say user name. You're going to create a variable here called the username, and you're going to store the user input in there. So we're going to say username, and this username is going to be gets dot just like this, and this is going to get for us the user's input, just like that. Then I can simply do puts, and then I can say hello, and then I can simply add the user's name in here, hello, and I can say user name, just like that. So let me go back to terminal, and then I clear this up, make sure that I so we have an error there, so I made a mistake in this. Let me just go back in here, and I'm going to simply add in the addition sign, and then I'm going to go back my terminal and then run that code again. So ask me for my name, I'm going to simply say Prince, and then simply press enter, and it's going to simply say hello world Prince, hello Prince. Okay, so once you can see that we use put in here, let's say that we want the user to be able to type on the same line, let's say on this side, right? We want the user to be, the username should be here, the user should be able to type here. So in that case, we already know the difference between put and print, so we can just change here to be print, because print won't keep a new line afterwards. So if I run the program again, so clear the terminal and then run the program again, so I can see I can now type in the Prince, and then it gets hello Prince. So that's how we can simply do taking user inputs. Let's say you want to take in another user inputs, and say print, and then say enter your age, and then just say once you have that age, you're going to now store the age in user underscore age, and this is going to be gets dot like this, and then you're going to convert this into an integer. So I'm going to say dot to I. Okay, this is going to convert the user input into an integer. So I'm going to print it out on the screen. This I'm going to do puts, and then you're going to say your age is, and then I'm going to simply add in the user age right there. So I'm going to go back to my terminal and then clear the terminal, and then run this code again. I'm going to say Prince, maybe I say that I'm 34 years old, and press enter. We got back an error here. It says that no explicit conversion of int and string. Okay, that's, we got an error back here, so we can convert this into a string. So let me just do this instead. I'm going to turn this into print, and then I'm going to move this right down here. So I'm going to say here, and I'm going to say print as well. So now hopefully I'm going to go back to terminal, and this will work. So I'm just say Prince, and then my age, let me say I'm 34, and then I print enter. You can see your age is 34. So that's the difference between put and print, and I hope now you have a solid understanding of the difference between put and print. So let's check if we try to put puts here, what do you think the output is going to be? So I'm going to say puts, and then I'm going to go back to my terminal, run that code again. So Prince, and then say 34, and then output, you can see your age is 34. So great. So now you have a solid understanding how to take user inputs and the difference between print and puts in Ruby. Okay, so now that we have that covered, let's go back to our GitHub and see what the next step. So we're going to go and talk about prints, their strings and string methods. Okay, so let's go back in here and then talk about strings and string methods. So I'm going to clear all this, delete all this. Again, I have all this, I have put all this in files, and it's on my GitHub repository. So later on, if I make the repository public, you guys could be able to see all the code. Okay, so let's go to strings. So if we see we created strings here, so we created my string, and strings are just like in Python. So you can say hello, let's say this is my string, just like this. So this is my string, and then now so we have this string. Let me just put it, output it, and then this is my string, just like this. And I'm going to now execute the code. So I'm going to clear the terminal and then execute the code. We get this is my string. So great. So now that we have working, this is simply a string. So you can also use single quotes when if you want to create strings in Ruby. So this is a single quotes. So now let's go ahead and try to run the program again, and it works. So you can use double quotes or single quotes in Ruby, just like you can in Python, but in this tutorial I'm just going to be using double string. So now that you have understood how to create a string, let's go and see how you can get the length of a string. Okay, so now you can do just simply do let's go here and then do dot size. So there are two ways to get the length of a string. So you can do dot size, or you can do my string dot length, just like this. So this will return to you this the length of the string. So let me just go back my terminal and then run the code again, and you can see it's 1717. So both of these ways will give you the length of a given string. So that's how you can be able to get the length of a string in Ruby. So once that we have that covered, the next thing I want to cover is uppercase and lowercase methods, okay, string methods. So you can also get the uppercase and lowercase. So I'm just going to come up here and I'm going to say uppercase, just like this. Make sure it's only a single p, so it's actually uppercase, rather it's uppercase. It's confusing with something from Python. It's uppercase, and you can also do downcase. Okay, so this is going to give you the uppercase, and this is going to give you the lowercase. So you can go back to the terminal. Let me just clear the terminal, run this. For now you can see we have the uppercase version, then we have the lowercase version. So it converts everything, every letter into an uppercase, and then this converts every letter into a lowercase. Okay, so that's the this is how you can get uppercase and lowercase in Ruby. Okay, you can also do this. We can also do puts, and you can do my string dot capitalize. So this is going to change the beginning, the very first letter of. So let me just change this to be a small letter T. So now if I do, let me just remove all of this, and I'm going to simply do puts, and I'm going to do my string. Okay, and for now I'm just going to comment this out. So to do comments, you just press you just use the hashtag symbol, just like in Python. So you can just press Control and / on your keyboard, and that will comment out that line. So I'm just going to print out the string for now. Go back to my terminal and then run the code again. You can see I have my string, and the first letter of this is a T, and it's a lowercase t. Okay, so what happens if I change. Let me just go back here. What happens if I make I make this to be upper, if I use a capitalize method on this string? So I'm just going to go back in here and then run this again. You can see T now has been uppercase. So you can see now T has been uppercase. So that's what capitalize do. It changes the very first letter inside of our string to be an uppercase. Okay, great. So now that we have that, let's also learn how to reverse a string. So I'm just going to remove this and then say puts my string dot reverse, just like this, my string dot reverse, and let's see what's going to happen. Let's go back to the terminal and then run this again. You can see now we have reversed our string. That's how you can reverse a string in Ruby. So just a simple some Ruby string methods that you can use. Again, don't worry about me deleting the code. I have all the code on my GitHub page, so I'm going to leave the link in the description in case you guys want to have access to all the code. So once that we have that, we can also change this method. So you can also say, you can also change all you can also say this, and you can also say dot uppercase, just like this. So this is going to first reverse the string and then convert it into uppercase. So now let's go back to the terminal and run this again. You can see the string is reversed and then it's also uppercase. So that's how you can chain different methods together in case you wish to. Okay, now let's check if how we can check if a string is a given string is present in another string. Okay, so you can just do puts my string dot include and then question mark, and then you can say if the string includes this. So let's check if this string right here, which is my string, does it include a string called this. So you can just check that out, and this should return to us a boolean. So if I run this, we say it's true because this is right here. Okay, so now if I change this to be a capital letter T and then I try to run the code again, do you think we'll get back a true? No, we get back a false. The reason why is that this is case sensitive. So this method here include question mark, this is case sensitive. So if I change this to be a capital T, now this should return to me a true. So if I run this again, now you can get back a true. So that's how we can check if how you can find if a substring exists within a given string. So let's move on to string concatenation. So you can just do puts, then you can do hello, and then I can just simply add another string here, and I can do hello world. Okay, just like this, hello world. World, just get the spelling of okay. Having typing issues. Okay, so I have hello and then world. So let's run this code and see what we get. So if I run this, we get hello world. So there's two strings get concatenated. So this one way we can concatenate two strings in using Ruby. So we can also do puts, then say hello space, and you can just do, you can use the add symbol, then you can say world, just like this. So let me just run the code and see what we get. So if I clear the terminal and then run the code again, you can see we get hello world there. Okay, and then we can concatenate the string just with puts, and you can say hello, just keep a space here, dot concat, just like that, dot concat, and you can provide in a string here, just say hello world. So if I run this is going to print hello world. Okay, so now just run this again, so you can see hello world, hello world, hello world. So that's how you can concatenate strings in Ruby. I think you can also use another method, which is going to be hello. Let's say hello, just like that, and then I can use this, and then I can say world, this is called with print, just like that. So if I now go back the terminal and run this again, you can see we also have that concatenated. So that's the different ways you can concatenate strings using Ruby. Okay, in Ruby. So let me just delete all of this, and also let's go to string comparison. So let's say puts let's say hello. Let's check if this is equals to hello. So let's try to run this and see what the output is going to be. So let me just run this, and you can see the output is true, yeah, because this and this are equal. Okay, so if I change this to be small letter h, so this small letter h, and then try to run that code again, what we get false. This because Ruby is case sensitive. Capital letter H and small letter h are two different things. Another way we can compare strings in Ruby, you can just, let me just bring back this here, hello, just like this, and you can say dot eql question mark, and then you can say hello. So just saying this string dot equal to this string, does it equal? So let's run the code again and see what we get. We get back false and true, because this is equal to this, but this string here is not equals to this string here. So that's two different ways you can check for string comparison in Ruby. So once you have that done, let's go to another section. We are going to be dealing with substrings in Ruby. So we're just going to say, we're going to be using this string to learn about substrings. So I'm just going to say puts, and then say my string, and then I'm going to get I'm going to put a square bracket here and then pass in 1 instead of the square bracket. So what do you think this is going to be? Well, if you're coming from Python, you probably know the answer already. This is going to return to us the first index, right? So let me just go back the terminal, clear the terminal, and run the code again. We just got back t, because t is at index 0 right here. So if I say t, I just get back index 0. So let's say 0 1 2 3. Let's say I want to get 3. That's probably return to us an S. So let me just run the code again and get back an S. Okay. So that's how you can work with strings. One way you can work with string like this. So you can also do puts, and then I say my string, and then I pass in the square brackets. I want 0 to 4. So or if you're from Python, you're probably familiar with this, but in Python you have this kind of syntax, right? So this is just going to return to us a range, okay, from 0 to 4. So let's run this again, and then you see we got back this, because this is 0 1 2 3 and 4, which is an empty space right here. Okay, so that's how it really works, how you can do string substrings in Ruby. Okay, you can also do this using another way. You can say 0 and then dot dot dot, 2 dots rather, and then 4. So it's going to also return to you a simple this. Okay, so let's run this again. It's going to return this twice. Okay, let's change this to be 3, and let's see what the output will be. If I run this again, it will return to us this, okay, because it's going to ignore the space that comes after. So unlike Python, whereby the last index is ignored, in Ruby the last index is not ignored. So if you put in a 3, and then it will return to you from index 0 to index 3 exactly. Okay, so but if you can see here, it changes, right? So if you use this kind of syntax, then it changes, but if you use the dot dot syntax, then it doesn't change. Okay, so that's how it is. We work with that in Ruby. Okay, so once we have talked about that, let's move on to one thing that you can also use in substrings. So you can also say puts, and then my string, and then I'm going to pass in here 0, and I'm going to get my string dot the length. Okay, so this is going to return to us, you can guess, from 0 until the length of that of this string. Okay, So if I run this again, so you can see we get back the whole string back, okay, because it's going to return to us everything from index 0 until the very last index, okay. Make sure you have to know that if you use the comma and then the last index, then it is going to ignore the very last index, just like in Python. But if you use the dot dot, then it's going to include it, okay. I hope you really understand that. So also one thing you also to learn about is we can also say negative. Let me say -4. So what do you think this is going to do? So it's very similar to kind of Python, where Python we say colon and then something like that to get from the end part of the string. So we're going to in this scenario, we're going to get back the fourth letter from the end of the string. So let me just go back here and run this. You're going to return to us R, because it's 1 2 this is a 0 1 it got back R, right? 0 1 2 and 3, okay. You can say this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4, because it's going to return to us, because we pass in 4, it's going to return to us for the fourth element from the very last part of the array. So let me just say 5 is going to return to us 1 2 3 4 and 5 is going to return to us T. So if I go back and run the code again, you're going to get back T, okay. So that's how you can work with substrings, and this, I think this is what you really need to know about Ruby. So let's move on. In this next section, we're going to learn about string interpolation. So this is say, let me just write a simple program, okay. So let me just say print, and I'm going to get let me just can also go ahead and actually delete this string because we don't need it here anymore. So I'm going to say print, and I'm going to say enter your name, just like that. And then down here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get user name, and which is going to be gets.chomp like this, and this is going to return to us the user's name, okay. So once you get the user's name, I want to simply say puts, and then I'm going to say hello, and then I can just add the username here. So let me just go and run the code and see what we get. So I'm just going to here and then run that code, and I'm going to simply type in prince, and I'm going to get hello prince, okay, as we see so earlier in the earlier tutorial. But what if I want to use string interpolation? So for you to use string interpolation is very simple, okay. Whereby in Python we have things like f strings and other format, string.format and stuff like that. Here we have this kind of method of doing it. So just say the hashtag and then the curly braces, the braces, and then instead of that you pass in that variable which you want to refer to. So this is how you do string interpolation in Python. So they say hello prince, and then I can say welcome here, okay, just like that, something very simple. And then I can go back to the terminal, run this again. I'm going to type in prince, and then you can say hello prince, welcome here. So that's how you can do string interpolation, and I'm going to keep it very simple. So once we have talked about strings and string interpolations, let's go ahead and talk about mathematical operators. So you can do puts 2 plus 3. This is going to return to us the sum of 2 and 3, which is going to be 5. So let me just clear the terminal, run that again. It's going to return to us a simple 5. So you can also do puts 2 minus 4. This is going to, let me just say 6 minus 4. It's going to return to us a 2. So let me just go back to the terminal, run this again. You get back 2. Okay, so you can do different methods. You can say puts 5 times 4, which is 20, puts 5 divided by 2, which is going to be 2.5, and you can also do puts 2 raised to power 4. So that can how you can raise the number to a certain power. So 2 raised to power 4, we can run the code and check what the answer is. So I'm going to bring back the terminal and then run the code. So 2 to power 4 is 16 as expected. So you can also do puts, and you can do 8 modulus. How you can do a modulus operator, modulus 3. This will return to us the remainder, and the remainder is going to be 2 divided. Let's check if the answer is going to be, I think it's going to be 0, right? Yeah, because 2 is exactly divisible by 8. So if I put in 5, let me just say 3, and I clear the terminal and run the code again, we get back 2 because the remainder is 2, right? So that's how we can work with some kind of mathematical operators in Ruby. So let's go ahead and actually learn about comparison operators. So let's say puts 2 equals to 2 is exactly 2, so this is done to us true, right? So just run the code again and we get back true. Let me just say puts on this comparison operators, just like that. So now we can check, and then we can also do puts let's check 6 is not equals to 4. 6 is not equals to 4, so let's run the code again and see what we get. That should be also a true. Great. So let's go back to the code and then let's learn about other string comparison operators. So 6 is greater than 4, that's true. So puts, I can do 7 is less than let's say 7 is less than 4, that's false. And then puts 8 is less or equals to 9. Yeah, so say puts 6 is greater or equals to 6. Yeah, so we can go ahead and actually run this again, run the code, and you can see we have these statements right here. So that's how you can do comparison operators in Python, and how you can use mathematical operators in in Ruby rather. So that's how string mathematical comparison operators are in Ruby, and also mathematical operators in Ruby. So once you have covered all of this, let's move on to conditional statements. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to remove all of this, and let's say have a variable here age. And one thing you have to notice is that in Ruby we don't have Ruby is an interpreted language, and it's also a dynamically typed language, meaning that you don't have to specify the data types. That's why you're not specifying the data types. It's just very similar to Python. So say age, if age is greater or equals to 18, let me just go down here, and then you just say puts just say you are an adult, just like that. So what do you think the answer here will be? So if age is greater or equals to 18, puts adult. So let's run the code and let's check what the output will be. So let me just bring back my terminal, clear this, and then run the code again. We got back an error here, say expecting ends. Great. So this is very different from Python. So in here you have to say end to end this if statement. So you have to say end in order to end the if statement. So let me just go back here and run this again, and you can see we got back no output. Okay, because this condition was false, it didn't trigger to be true, so it didn't go anywhere else. So now that you have seen the if statement, let's go to the else portion. So you can say else. And then else we can say sorry, let me just bring back this, and you're saying else, and you can say puts you can say you are not an adult, just like this. So now as we have this, we can go ahead and actually run the code. So let's go back. I'm going to terminal, and then clear the terminal, run this code one more time, and you can see you are not an adult because your age is not greater or equals to 18. Great. So that's how you can do if and else. How do you do if and else if? Okay, so let's come back here and say else if. Okay, just like that. I don't know why this auto completes like that. So say else if, you can say the condition here saying age. If age is 16, so let's say 17, you can just say puts you are not an adult, almost there, just like that. You're not an adult, but you're almost there. Okay, and then if we check this, if it's true, we're going to print you're an adult. If it's 17, you're saying you are not an adult, almost there. Else, you're going to print you are not an adult. So let me just run the code again, and you can see you are not an adult because this failed and this failed. Let me change the name, the age to be 18. So this is going to be true, and this is going to be printed you are an adult. So let me just go back to the terminal and then run the code again, and you can see you are an adult. So let me just change this to 17, and let's see what happens. And then let me just go back to the terminal, run the code again. You can see you are not an adult, almost there. Okay, when you're 17 years old. So that's how we do with if, else, if, and else statement in Ruby. So one thing you have to notice is that you have to put in the end, and this is something I always forget because being a Python programmer, we don't use the else thing, right? So once you're done with this, let's move on to ternary statements. So let me remove all of this. So let me just say let's say answer. Let me just say an answer, and this is going to be, we're going to check the condition. We're going to say age. If age is equals to let's say equals to 18. If this is true, then we want to do something, so we'll keep a question mark. If it's true, then we want to say that adult. So let's say adult. What if it's not true? Then we say the dots double the dots, I don't know what it's called, colon, whatever. Then you're saying not adult, just like that. So let me explain to you this, and then later I want to put and just like that. So I'm going to say if age is equals to 18, if it's true, the question mark, if it's true, then assign adult to this variable. If it's not true, means this one, if it's not true, then assign not adult to this variable. So let's run the code and see what happens. So let me just go here, clear the terminal, and then run this. You can see not adult because 17 and 18 are not equal. So let me change this to be 18, and let's see what happens. So I'm going to go back to terminal and then run the code again. You can see you are an adult. So that's how ternary statements work in Ruby. Okay, so if this condition is true, then this variable will, this value will be assigned to this, else this value will be assigned to this. So great. So now let's move on and learn about how arrays work. So arrays in Ruby. So let's create, create an array underscore, I'm going to call it array1, and this is going to be how you can these are the ways you can create an array. So you can do this, and this will create an array. Another way you can create an array is just let me say array2, and this is going to be array dot new, and this is also going to create for you two arrays. Okay, so let's move on to check how you can check the different attributes of this array. So let me just check the array size. So I can say puts array one dot size. So this is going to return to me the size of that specific array. So I can just run the code, and you can see array size is 0. So let's make this to be also check of array2. So array 2 dot size, and then you can run the code again, and let's see what we get, and both of them are going to be 0. Okay, now you can also check this. You can say length. So if you also check array dot length, is going to return to you the length, the size of that array. In this case we have 0 there. So now let's move on to how we can add something to our something inside of our array. So let me just delete all this, and then I'm going to create another array here. I'm going to call it array3, and array3 is just going to be like this, and you can begin to just to add stuff in here directly. So you can just let me just say 1 3 5 7 and 9. So let me just put in those elements in there, and I can simply just go ahead and actually check the size of the array. So I can just do puts array3 dot size, and this is going to return to me the size of that array. The size of the array should be 1 2 3 4 and 5. So let me just run the code and see what I get. I get back 5 elements because there are 5 elements in there. I can also what if I use this method, how can I give an array size? So you say array let me just say 4 array underscore 4 be equals to array dot new, and I can just provide the size in here. I can just go ahead and specify the size in here. So I can just say maybe I want an array of size 6. So I can just do puts array 4 dot size. So let me just run the code and see what we get. So if I run the code, and you can see I get 5 and 6 because the size of this array right here is going to be 6. So if I do the array dot size, and that's the reason why we're getting 6 here. So great. So now that I look at the size of the array, let's look at how we can add different things to the array. But before we do that, we can just go ahead and actually look at how we can add stuff to the array. So let me just go in here and can just say delete all of this. I can just say this is going to be add elements to the end of the array. So you can just do array let's use array3 dot push. So I'm going to push something to the back of the array. So I'm going to push in 30. So let me just go ahead and actually put this, print that array 3 out. So array3. So if I print that, let me just go back here, run the code again, and you can see I can see 30 is inside there. So I have 1 3 5 7 9 and 30. So 1 3 7 5 and 9 are these numbers here, and then you have added 30 to the back of the array. That's why you're getting this. So to add elements to the back of the array, we use the puts method. So once that we have that, we can also add elements to an array in a different way. So instead of using this puts, let's just say array array3 you can just use the arrow sign like this, and then to add, maybe I want to add 50 to the back of the array. So now let me just go ahead, clear the terminal, run the code again. You can see also we have 50 in there. So this is how you can add stuff to the back of the array using the push or this arrow method right here. So once we have that, let's look at the unshift method. So add elements to the start of the array, use the unshift method. So let me just remove all of this, and I'm going to say array 3 dot unshift, just like that. And unshift, I'm going to go ahead and unshift 0. So I want to add 0 to the front of the array, and if I print out that array, I should have 0 at the very beginning. So previously we see we didn't have 0 in here, so now we can see we have 0 at the beginning of the array. These two numbers were there because we're adding to the last part of the array. So we have, that's how we can add elements to the front of the array. So let's check how you can insert element at a specific index. So you can just delete this, and you can say array 3 dot and then you can just do dot insert. So I want to insert at position 0. I want to insert let me again also this insert maybe 58. Okay, so I want to insert 58 at index 0. So if I run the code again, you can see we have 58 right there at index 0. Okay, so that's what one we can insert elements to that array. One thing you know that in Ruby, just like in Python, you can have different data types in a given array, unlike in C or C++, where arrays are of a given type only. In Python and in Ruby, you can insert any element into an array, because all objects, all variables or things in Ruby are considered to be like objects, just like in Python. So they have very similar concepts. So if I run this again, so you can see we have insert right there. So now that you have done all of this, let's also look at how we can access element at a given index in an array. So I can just go ahead and just delete all of this, and I'm going to come down here where I'm doing the printing this, and I'm going to say dot at index 2. So at in here takes in the index. So the index is the value that you want to access. So I want to access the element at index 2. This is index 0, this is 1 and 2. So it should return to me 5. So if I run the code again, I should get back 5 exactly. So that's how you use the add method. Okay, so you can use the add method, and let's say I specify here to be 40. You know that we don't have index 40 in here. So what is Ruby going to do? In other programming language, you get this error of out of bound index, or index out of bound, something like that. So let's run in Ruby. See what we get. We just, the program ran fine, and we just got a blank stuff. So this is really confusing, right? So why should element 20 doesn't exist, but instead of the program outputting an error, we just get back a simple empty. Okay, we don't even get back now, we just get back something empty. So how do we go about solving this in Ruby? That's why we have the fetch. So the fetch in Ruby return an error in case that doesn't exist. So let me change this to be fetch, and then I try to run this again. It's going to throw us an error in case element 20 doesn't, you see, outside of array bounds. Okay, so yeah, that shows that that's what the fetch is used for. It's just like at, but it return an error in case that index doesn't exist. So great. So now let's look at another method we can use. We can use first. So this is going to return to you the first element. So let's try to run the code, and let's check. See, let's clear the terminal and see it's going to return to us the very first element, which is just 1. So let's also say first, and then I can also say last. We can say puts array 3 dot last. So let me just try to run the code and see what happens. So let me just try to run the code again. We can see we got 1 and 9, and the last element is 9 and the first element is 1. So let me just try to also use this with using the braces. This is what we call functions. Will this work? Let me just run this, and you can see it works. So you can decide to use this the bracket if you want, or you can decide to leave it out. But I see most guys in Ruby leaving it out, so I'm also going to be leaving it out. So let's now also look at another method we can use. You can also use the take method. So take will return the first n elements of the array. So let me say take 3. It's going to return to me, say 3. It's going to return me the first 3 elements, which is me 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to get until 5. So if I clear the terminal, run the code again, so I can get 1, 2, 3, and 5, which are the first 3 elements. So if I say take 4, you can guess it's going to return to us 1, 2, 3, and 1. 3, 5, and 7. So if I go back and run the code again, and you can see we'll get back exactly that. So once that you have looked at all of that, let's go and look at the drop. So let's see what the drop is going to say. So drop, and what does a drop do? So drop excuse me, returns the remaining elements after dropping n number of elements. So returns the remaining elements after dropping n number of elements. So if I specify 3, it's going to drop 3 and it's going to return to me the rest. So it's going to drop all of this and it's going to return to me 7 and 9. So let's run the code and see. We get back just 7 and 9 because it's going to drop the first 3 elements from the index 0. So now let's go and see another method, which is a pop method. So what does the pop does? So this is very similar to other programming languages where the pop returns to you the very removes the elements from the last part of pop removes and returns the very last element, right? So if I run this code again, it's going to remove and return to us 9. That's why it's going to return to us 9. So if I just print puts array and then 3, let's see what will happen. So if I go back in here and then run the code again, it's going to return to me 9, which is just going to be pop, the first pop, and you can see that it has been removed from the list, so we don't get back 9 after the second print. So that's how you can the pop work. So let's run about shift. So shift removes from the front end. So let me just say shift rather, it's going to remove from the front rather than the back. So it's going to remove 1 and it's going to return it. So this you're going to print 1, and this you're going to print the rest of the remaining element because it's going to remove 1 from the array. So if I go back, clear the terminal, run this again, you can see we got back 1 because it removes and returns it. So let me just go back. This can be confusing, so let me just put this here and then let's see. And I'm going to copy this line and repeat it again so that you guys can see the difference. So let me just go back and then run the code again, so you can see it prints 1 to 9 and then removes that 1 and then prints 3 to 5, 3, 5, 7 and 9. So that's how it basically works. So let's look at the delete method. So I'm just going to just delete all of this, and I'm going to come in the same way, say delete. So delete takes in an integer. So what you want to delete? So let's say we want to delete let's say you want to delete 3. So it's going to delete the 3 that you want to delete. So it's going to delete this 3 right here. If you specify 5, it's going to delete 5. It's going to go through the array basically and look for the number that you specify and delete it. So let me go ahead and actually run the code and see what output we get. So I'm going to clear the terminal, run the code. We can see we got back let me just go back here. So it deletes it and returns it. So let me just say deletes. Let's say I'm not printing this out, so we shouldn't get any 3. So if I go back the terminal and then run the code again, so you can see we get back 1, 5, 7 and 9 because it's going to delete 3. It deletes and returns what is deleted. That's why we're getting 3 on the first run, okay, at the beginning. So that's why we're going to get back the remaining after deleting 3. So if you specify 7, then it will delete 7 and return everything else other than 7. So I'm just going to go back here and then run that. It's going to delete everything else. It's going to return everything else other than 7 because it's going to delete 7. So great. Once that you have gone over that, let me just add more, show you one more method. So I'm going to add more values. I'm going to say 3 and 3. I can add another 5. I can add another 1. Okay, so you can see I have duplicates in my array here. So let me just print out the array and see what we get. So if I run this, we can get back 3 here, 3 here, 5 here, 5 here. So we have duplicates in our array. So let's say I don't want duplicates, so just do dot unique, just like this, and this is going to return to me only the unique value elements from that array. So I'm going to clear the terminal, run this again, because you can see I don't have any duplicates in here and I don't have any repeating numbers. So that's how you can get the unique values back from an array. So that's how we can work with arrays in work with the arrays and stuff like that in Ruby. So what I'm going to cover next is going to be the hashes in like dictionary sort of in Python. So to create this, I'm just going to delete everything else and I'm going to create this. I'm going to create value pair. So this is just a key value pair and I'm going to specify it in here. So you can just say key underscore 1, and this is going to specify arrow and this pointing, and you can say value underscore 1, just like that. This is going to return to you value 1. Okay, and I can also do comma, and then you can specify key underscore 2, and key underscore 2, I just use this and going to return to me value underscore 2. So I can say key 1 points to value 1 and key 2 points to value 2. So if I go ahead and actually put value pair, So once that you have set up that, I want to go ahead and actually print this out. So I'm just going to run the code again and let's see what we get. So if I print it out, you can see we have the key value pair. So this is how you can create a key value pair in Ruby. So this in Python we call them dictionaries, right? These are hashes. We call them hashes in Ruby. So let me just say another way you can create a key value pair. So let me just say key value underscore pair and just move that pair 2, and I'm going to say this. So this is going to be this. Have the funny first one is going to be say a name, and then I'm going to say name is going to be just like in Python. You can do maybe say prince, and then we're going to go ahead and say maybe country. I'm currently in Kenya, so I'm going to say Kenya, even though Kenya is not like my birthplace, but I'm currently in Kenya. So language, and then the language is going to be, let's say Swahili. So just like that, and I can do key value pair 2. I can print it out, print that out, and let's see what we get. So if I run the code again, we can see we have so we have an error right there. So let me just go back and see what the error is. Says that I don't see where the error is. So key value pair 2, and this is going to be name, then the value there, and this. Let me just bring this back. Let me just go to the terminal and read unexpected this. So it's saying unexpected. Let me just run the code again. Yeah, this should work now. This we get back the key value pair, but you can see it's in a different format. Okay, so that's how it works. So one thing you must notice is that the colon must come right after the name of the key. Okay, so there must not be space. I think that was the cause of that error. So let me try again. Yeah, that was the cause of that error. So make sure that you don't have that right there. So that's how you can do a key value pair. So let's say that let me just bring back the first key value pair. Let's say I want to access a given value, so I can just specify the key here, which is going to be key underscore 1. So if I specify key 1 and I run the code again, let's see what we get. So let me just click the terminal and then run the code again. You can see we get value 1. We got back the value of that specific key. So let me just also let me do the same thing for the other one. So let's say puts, so puts, and then say value value pair 2, and then I want to get now the value, so I can just do this passing codes, and I can specify I want to get maybe name. But now if I run this, what do you think the output is going to be? So let me just run this, and you can see we got back nothing. So this is completely empty, but we have the key of name in there. So how do we access this? The reason is that because here we use a different syntax, and here we use a different syntax to achieve the same thing. So even here we have to use a different syntax, so you have to keep a colon right before the key, and that will get you the value. So if I run the go back the terminal, run it again, you can see I get back the key there. So now make sure that you pay attention to which method you use, and also this affects the way you access the different keys and values. Okay. So we can also do puts value pair 1 dot size. This will return to us a size, and then let's run the code again and see the size. I got a value, I got an error there. So this is key value, this is pair this, and then make sure I delete that E over there, and then I can run this again, clear the terminal, run this again. You can see the value is 2 because we have 2 keys in there. So let me just say change this to be key value pair 2, and then let's run the code again and let's see what we get. We get back 3 because there are 3 individual keys in there. So that's how you can work with hashes in Ruby. So now let's move on to the other thing we need to cover in this tutorial. So we're going to cover loops. So we can just do puts, let's say let's do a for loop for I in 1.10. So this is how we specify ranges in Ruby. So you can say for I in the range from 1 to 10. Okay, so now in Ruby you have to say end. Okay, in Python we have this colon Ruby isn't there, so you have to use the end. So you have to say puts, and then let me just print out from I from 1 to 10. Let's see what the output will be. So let me just clear the terminal, run this, we get back from 1 to 10, unlike in Python whereby in the range we exclude the last element in that range. In Ruby you actually print it out. Okay. So you can loop through different ranges. So let's try to make an all array here. So let's make an array, let's say 2 4 6 8 10 12. Let's try to loop through that and see what the output is going to be. So try to clear the terminal, run this again, we get back 2 4 6 8. Actually this is actually 10, so this I want to keep it all even number, so that's actually 10. So that's how you can loop through using a for loop in Ruby. So let's go over while loop. So you can say while y. So I want to create a value here called y. So I'm just going to move up here, create a value called y, a variable. So I'm going to say y equals to 1. While y, just go back here, a bit of space, and then while y is less than 11, then I want to say do. Then I want to also make sure end it. Yeah, it's also automatic ends, and then y print. I want to put y, and then I want to do y plus equals to 1. Okay, so I want to put output y, and I want to add 1 to y. So I'm just going to clear the terminal over there and then run the code again. You can see we have that output right there. So that's how you can use while loops and how you can use for loops in Ruby. Okay, so let's move to until and less in Ruby. So I'm just going to let me just delete this part here. Okay, so until, let's start with until will execute the code till the condition is the condition becomes true. So let's say till x this is y equals to 15. So it will execute the code until this condition of y being 15 is met. So you say end also, and in here you just have to say puts y and then y plus equals to 1. So let's see what the output will be. So I'm just going to go here and clear the terminal, run it again. So it's going to execute the code until this condition of y being 15 is met. So when y becomes 15, this becomes true, we are not going inside of this block anymore. So we'll continuously go inside of this block as long as y is not equals to 15. So that's what the the until means. So let's also use unless. So unless so let me just fix that typo there. Unless will execute the code if condition is false. So if this condition is false, then y execute the code. So let's say if y is greater than 15, this is going to be false. So as long as it's false, we are going to execute the code. So let me just go in here, clear the terminal, run this again. Let me just see. Y is let's say y is greater, not less, y is greater, and then execute the code again. You can see we get back only 1. So it will only execute the code when this is false, and to go in here only once. Okay, so that's the difference between until and unless. Okay, so now once you have done that, let's go to break and next. Okay, so I'm just going to remove all of this, and then you can say that for I in 1.10. okay, and then let's end that. So from range of in the range of 1 to 10, you're going to say if I is equals to if I is equals to 7, then what you want to do here, you want to break. So if I equals to 7, you want to break, and then you have to say end, and then if y is not equal to 7, I just want to print out y. So okay, so let me just say this actually I, and then here I want to print out I. Okay, so you're going to go through the loop from ranges of 1 to 10, and then if I is equals to 7, then you want to break, else you want to continuously put I. Okay, you want to print I out. So I'm just go terminal, clear that, and run the code again. You can see we continuously print until when I becomes 7, and then we break out of that loop. So let's say, what if you don't want to break out of that loop, but you only want to skip 7? So that's where the next comes in. So the next, whenever this condition is true and you hit next will skip 7 and it will continue printing out. So let me just go by terminal and run this again. So you can see we get 2, 1, 2, 4, and then whenever we reach 7, we skip 7, and then we continued 8, 9, and 10. So that's what that loop is meant for. So that's what the next keyword does. So once you have covered that, I want to delete all of this, and I want to move on to the switch statement. So let me just delete all of this. So I'm just going to have a simple print here. So I'm going to say print, and I'm going to say input a number, just like that. Input a number. So once we are going to the user to put a number, you're going to store the user input in this variable called user input. You're going to get get.chomp, just like that. Once we get the user input, I want to convert it into an integer, and we use dot to underscore I. And you're going to say case user input, and you're going to say when we're going to say when the user input is 1, we want to put it's Monday. Let's say Monday, just like that. And then you say when it's 2, you want to put it's Tuesday, and then you want to check when it is 3. We want to say puts it's Wednesday, just like that. End of the time you can just do an end. So if you run the code, and then if the user input is 1, it's just going to print it's Monday. If it's 2, it's going to print it's Tuesday. If it's 3, it's going to print it's Wednesday, and so forth. So let's go back here, clear the terminal, and then run the code again. So I'm going to type in 2, so it's going to tell me it's Tuesday. If I run again and I say 1, 1 is going to tell me it's Monday. So that's how we do it, work with switch statements in Ruby. So we have covered all the fundamental stuff in Ruby. So let's go move on and cover object-oriented programming. So just going to create a simple class and then create an object to show the different how we can work with object-oriented programming in Ruby. So I'm going to create a class. This is how you create a class. I'm going to call it person, and I'm going to have I'm going to just say each person can have a name, a height, and age. So I'm going to say this is going to be instance variable. So instance variable, just like that. And I'm going to, how we create instance variable is just use the @ sign and then name, and then you're going to have @ sign, and then you're going to have age, and then @ sign, you're going to have height. So make sure that you also put the end block right. So I can create a constructor in here. So I'm just going to go and actually create a constructor. I'm going to call it initialize, and this is going to create for me a constructor. So I'm going to click in a name and age and height, just like that. So if a person is, let me just also end this. Okay. Now, one thing we didn't cover before reaching the classes is how to create functions. Okay, so this is how you create a function in Ruby. So this is how you just create a simple function in Ruby. So you just say the dev keyword, the name of the function, and then you can just have the parameters if you want, and then also don't forget to use the end. Okay, so in here I'm just going to specify that name is going to be name, and then I'm going to say age is going to be age, and then I'm going to say height, and this is going to be height, just like that. So I can just go ahead here, I have a function def, and I'm going to simply say that detail. I'm going to just say get name, and this is simply going to return the username. So I'm just going to say a person's name rather. So I'm going to just return at name, just like that. So this is going to return to us the name of that individual person. So if I just go down here to create an object, and to create an object is very simple. I'm just going to say person. This is going to be person.new, and again providing the name of the person, I can say John Doe. I can provide in the age of that person, let's say it's 34, and then the height, let's say 6 feet or something. Yeah, so here I can just go, there's a puts, just get a spelling of puts, right? Puts person, person dot get name. So if I say puts person dot get name, and I try to run my code again, so clear the terminal, and then run the code Ruby. So I can just get John Doe, that's the name of the person. So if I just say put.get name, it returns to me the name, and I'm simply printing it out. So I can also do different methods. So I can also write different methods here if I want. So that's basically how we can work with objects and classes in Ruby. So I can just to practice, I'm going to create one more def, and it's going to be details, and this is going to be details, and I'm going to have end, just like this. So I'm going to say puts, and I'm going to say name, and the name is just going to be the name of that person. So I'm going to be using string interpolation. So and then I'm going to use name here. So I'm going to say at name, and you can say puts, and then you can say age, and this is going to be $, so with the hashtag, and then the at, and then age, just like that. So if I go down here, instead of getting the name, and I say details, and if I run the code, it's going to return to me that output. So let me just go back in here, go to my terminal, run the code again. So let me just run the code. You can see I have the name in here, and then the age. Okay, so that's how I'm able to get the name and that age details. yeah, so that's basically it for this tutorial. This is how you can work with functions. Okay, these are just basically functions. So if you remove the function outside of the class, let me just show you. So I'm just going to delete all of this. So let's just create a simple function here, def, and I'm going to call it let's say hello. This is a simple function like that, and then down here I'm going to say end, and I'm simply going to say puts hello world. Okay, so they've created a simple function here. So how do we call this function? You just have to say hello, just like that, and then you can go in the terminal, clear this, run it again. You can see we get back hello world. So that's how you create a simple function. Let's say we're taking a certain user, so let's say username, and in here we want to use a string interpolation, and so we say here username, and then in here I need to pass in the user, so I can just say John Doe, just like that, and I can go in here and simply execute the code. I can get hello John Doe, just like that, and that's how I execute the code to get the exact output as I want. So that's how you can that's just the basics of Ruby. So if you're new to the channel, kindly consider subscribing, hit the notification bell so you guys can stay updated whenever I upload new videos on Ruby. So thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Keep safe.